Alrighty, Jaslyn, here's your video. So you have probably this somewhere, which is your master data file for centers around depression 2020 with threshold. And it's just an Excel file. Somewhere in there, okay, here are your data. So you've got Klein Cross 1 through 6. Here's the accuracy. You can scroll down and you will see some summary data, which are here for those 6. So I think this is like, actually forget what's what. Yeah, here we go. So top is controlled, then unmedicated, then medicated, I guess. Okay, let's just check and see if that's accurate. Always good to do if you haven't worked with data for a while. Is that accurate? Are these really all the controls? I don't know. Let's go look at their subject IDs. I think we're down to about there. All right, so yeah, I know you can't actually see this that well because you are looking at only part of the screen, but yes, so those are indeed all the healthy controls. So I won't check anything else for now. You can check and make sure it's the right subjects. But so these are the data you're going to be using to make your graphs down here, these little averages. So for example, for Klein Cross, you get these 6 points averaging the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth for the controls, and then for the unmedicated and then the medicated, I think. And so what you're going to do is just grab this. I use probably you're really just going to be graphing these averages here. See? But you also want to graph the standard error, which is the last one. So this is the average, this is standard deviation, and then this is the n. I just use a count function, see? To count how many are there, how many data points we have. Sometimes there's like one missing or something, so it's not quite, it's not like there's 35 controls, so it's 35 every time. No, sometimes they're missing a data point or whatever. So we want to actually count the number of observations that we're actually using. So here we have 30 for the controls. And then the standard error is just the standard deviation divided by the square root of n, so square root of 30. So really all you need is this and this, but I usually just grab it all, copy, and then I would paste it in to a script here in MATLAB. So the way you paste it into MATLAB is like this. You say like, data are going to equal, and then you open brackets. Usually you put a little semicolon after so that it doesn't print out on you every time you execute the command. But you say data equals brackets, whatever, and you can just paste in the stuff that you just, copied and pasted or copied. And you just paste it into the brackets. Doesn't really matter if the bracket went to the next line there, but I usually go like that and make it on the same line as the data. So that's it. So now I have these data from these data here are in MATLAB. Great. Why is that good? Well, because what I can do is I can graph those data. Matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll just say, watch this. I'll execute a command right now. I'll say, oh, hold on. What I'm going to do is copy this into the command prompt, enter. Let's move this over so you can see a little better. So now I've created this variable called data. See, it's over here. What I'll do is hit clear, and then I'll do it again. I'll say data equals. In fact, I can just paste, data equals blah, blah, blah. And I create my variable data. Great. Now, so if I say data, it prints it out for me. Very nice. And it has these rows here. So this is the averages. This is the standard error. These are the stuff we want. So now, I can just say, plot data. So if I plot data, it's going to do something really funky. Do all sorts of weird, there's different lines here that you can't even see. It goes up to 30. What's going on here? Well, it's plotting every row. I only want some of the rows. I only want the first row and the last row, actually. So if I say plot data, just the first row, all columns, I probably didn't close my parentheses. Yeah. If I close my parentheses, I got a nice plot. So there's the averages, just for whichever group I selected there. I forget, what was this thing of controls maybe? Lovely. So that's how you plot. It's very simple. Here, sorry. I selected only part of the screen to record here, and it's like probably the worst decision I've ever made. All right, now you can see everything that I'm doing in there. Okay, so that's how you plot, and you can do some nice things like you can specify things in the plot. So I'm using the plot command. I have these data that I'm going to plot, which, by the way, so if I just say, if I take the same thing that's in the plot command there, if I say data1 colon, it's going to print out. And so all this is doing here is just saying those 6 numbers. So data1 comma colon is these 6 numbers. So I could say plot, and then I could open brackets and say, like, 1, 4, 6, 2, whatever. And I do that, and it plots those numbers that I just said. 1, 2, 4, 5, 2. 1, 2, 4, 5, 2. See? So that's all the plot command is doing, is it's plotting the numbers that you put in. So we have data 1, so we're referring, to the data variable, and we're grabbing just 6 numbers from it. Now we can make our plot fancier. I'm just going to take these random numbers for the sake of explaining, and we can make it do little circles for each data point. Rather than just having a line, it's kind of hard to tell one from another. We can go like that. I want circles, but lines between the circles, and then now it does it like that for me. I've got some nice balls right there, little circles. And I can also add a comma and then add another specifier that I want it to be, green, for example. Oops. It doesn't like it. Is it supposed to be in the same? Yeah, I guess it's supposed to be in the same little apostrophes. It's not another comma. So now it's green. Great. So you can mess around with it and make it look however you like. The one thing you don't yet understand what you need to is how to do error bars. So for that, it's actually a different function, but it works basically exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create error bar data. I'm going to create a variable just randomly now that equals rand 1 row 6 columns. See? Error bar data. Yeah, it's just these random numbers here. They're all between 0 and 1, but they're random numbers I just generated. So error bar data is that. Great. Okay, so now to do error bars, I just use, it's the same exact thing. I can hit up, I can get the plot command going again to make this little green thing I made before. But instead of plot, I'm actually going to delete the word plot. I'm going to say error bar. So actually, error bar is the command you use to make a graph with error bars in MATLAB. And first, you list. This is the syntax. Syntax is like, what is the structure of the sentence that I should expect you to say to me? So computers are very dumb. They only understand if you say it in exactly the right order, the information they need. So the first piece of information the computer needs is, what's the averages that I'm going to plot, or the stuff that's going to determine where on the y-axis stuff is. And then the next thing I'm going to be able to receive from you in terms of information is going to be, how big are the error bars for each thing I put on the y-axis? How big is the error bar? And we'll just use that error bar data variable we just created to do that. Oh, you did not. Okay. Y negative delta must be empty or the same size as the y delta. Oops. You know why? Because plot, these random numbers I'm using for my plot, there's only 5 of them. So I can fix that by making a 6th one. And there's 6 pieces of data for the error bar data too. So, okay, happy. It comes in, and it has error bars on it, and the size of the error bar is these random numbers that I determined before. See, the first one's very small because it's 0.09, randomly determined to be that. Then random again, but 0.27, and then 0.5. And then there's a couple that were almost 1, 0.95, 0.96, very big error bars, and the last one's very small. 0.15. Okay, so it makes sense. So that's how you make an error bar graph in MATLAB, and that's really all you need to do. Before, I think I found this little program here that I might have made a draft for you or something, and it's just doing that. So let's just look at it real quick. So I use a subplot command. So in MATLAB you can create a figure and then create subplots within the figure. So if I run this, you'll see, this is basically what it's doing. Is it's got 3 little graphs on the big graph. That's what a subplot means, and that has a syntax to it. It's expecting. So it's like, how many subplots are we going to have? Well, we're going to have 1 row of subplots, and we're going to have 4 columns. So that's why when I run it, there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's a space for a 4th. I never went ahead and drew it, but there's a space for a 4th. And then the first one of those 4 is the one we're going to be drawing right now. So we say data equals blah blah blah. Or actually, this was something I just pasted in now, right? That whole data thing was just something to show you. So I'm going to delete that. Control baseline is the variable we want that apparently pasted in before. And then there's they're making me so nervous. Oh, I see. So this is actually very important for you. So there's something I didn't tell you about the errorbar command. So the errorbar command it's kind of flexible actually. It can work in multiple ways. So it can work in the way I showed you here, where the first thing you tell it is the Y data, then you tell it the errorbar data, and then you tell it in like what color to be. There's another way you can do it, in which you also specify the X data. If you don't specify the X data, it just assumes to use like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or whatever for the X data when it's plotting. But if you specify, you can specify it to be whatever you want. And in fact, that's the very reason you're making these graphs again, is the fact that you have some new X data. You have some actual contrast values that you measure that you're going to use for the X data. So you're going to put those in first. So first you tell it the X data, then you tell it the Y data, then you tell it the error bar, and you put a comma between each one. So just like we have here. So error bar, X data, so you're going to replace these, then you're going to enter the data you enter for control baseline first row, which is just referring to here, and then control baseline 4th row for the error bars, which is just the last row that you copied from the Excel sheet. And then it will make a nice graph for you. And then that'll be just the controls. And then this is the currently depressed, the recovered depressed. So you can paste people in variously. And so this is the first graph it's making, 1, 4, 1, the first subplot. Now the second subplot it's going to make is 1, 4, 2, the second little graph. Here, and it's labeled cross and stuff. Comes up there. Now, I think I told you to do it a little differently. I think I told you to do control baseline, and then control ISO, and then control cross. So instead of putting current baseline next, you're going to put control ISO next or something, and then control cross. And your first subplot is just going to be the controls. It's going to have baseline, ISO, and cross. So you just need to kind of like reorder, and then when you finally draw your error bars, you're going to be just doing control stuff for your first little subplot. See? And so all you do for that is you leave, see, right here I say subplot 1, 4, 1. So now it's like anytime I use a command like error bar that makes a plot, it's going to plot it onto this subplot, the last one I mentioned, subplot 1, 4, 1. Essentially subplot 1, of which there are 4. And so that's what it does on this first line here where I say error bar. Oops, sorry. This is probably the one. This is the first one. The first error bar command that is drawn on that subplot is right there. Now the second one is here, and notice how I use this command hold on before drawing the second error bar. If you just say error bar for a second time, it's going to delete the first plot that you made using the errorbar function and just draw another one instead. So you don't want to do that. You want to leave the first one you drew, like of the control baseline, and then add control ISO. So you're going to use this hold on command also. And then I use it again, just make sure it's on. I don't even know if I still needed this command again, but and then draw the third condition. And then you can mess with the axes. So this is the x min, x max, y min, y max, and then for the title, you can call it, you'd probably call it controls. You wouldn't call it baseline. So I'm going to send you this program in case you don't have it, Klein Graphs Basic, and you can just change this program to make it work for you. Now, one other thing, the last thing I'll tell you for this video is that a lot of what I taught you here in terms of the syntax stuff, you could have figured out yourself by doing the following. So for example, maybe what I just told you about the axis stuff, like you forget, what's the syntax for axis? So what you do is you go help axis. And MATLAB is going to spit out all this information about the axis function. So axis is a function in MATLAB that does stuff, and the first thing it tells you, well, it tells you what it does, but then it tells you this is the syntax. So you're going to do axis, open parentheses, then you have brackets, and you're going to do x min, x max, y min, y max. And these are just numbers you're going to enter. And so that is probably the most important thing. So for the error bar function, it's the same way. Remember I told you there's, just say help error bar. And I told you there's like different ways to do it. So you can do just the y data and then error bars, or you can do the x data, then the y data, then the error bars, and it explains it all for you. So any function that you're confused by, you can probably just type help, whatever the name of that function is, and you can learn a lot that way. That's how I learned to program for the most part, is using that help function a lot in Google. Okay, so that's it. Oh, maybe it's not it. It doesn't want to stop.